pod bay doors, please, pal.
All right.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Look at the coast. We get together, have a few laughs.
A Movie Odyssey with Brad Patel and Gus Trout.
Yeah, this isn't super interesting, but before we get into, no one wants to hear about this. Hey, I don't think I haven't been listening to the other episodes, guys, and I just, I have a quick message from.
It's real quick here. I'm just so glad.
I can see where this is going.
I'm so glad to have Lucas on. He is our favorite guest. Number one, Lucas. Number one.
Okay. Well, I
don't know. There's like other people out there that have guest stars.
Wait, I want to listen. I want to hear what.
Lucas.
I want to hear what Lucas has to.
I have a message from my attorney to play for you, so just listen.
Hello, this is attorney Edward Siflowitz of Siflowitz and Siflowitz. I'm calling in regards to my client, Adam Lukas. I would need you to cease and desist any future activity on the podcast, A Movie Odyssey, featuring Brad Patchouli, Bad Patulo, and Gustave Trout. It is critical that you cease and desist any future activity with anyone as a guest host other than Mr. Lucas. I will be following this up with a letter, and have a nice day.
So
Well, at least you didn't butcher our names.
Well, that was probably one of the worst mispronunciations of my last name I've ever heard. Is that legally binding?
Hey guys, it's just business, okay? It's just business. I will say I'm not going to end up like Mozart, though. I'm not going to end up penniless, dying. My wife left me. My child who never speaks is also gone.
We're
making so much money off of this.
And you're dictating to Brad how to edit the episode.
Yeah, Brad. Yes, I'm in bed with the world's thickest comforter.
I feel like this movie no one talks about anymore.
Nope.
Like, you know what I mean? There's movies that you like. My YouTube algorithm just gives me like analyses Adidas, how do you say it? Analyses of a million movies, and I love it. I watch them all. No one talks about this movie, and it's fucking insane.
Well, Adam, I think I told Gus this, but I don't think I told you. This is a first for me on the podcast. Yesterday was my first time seeing this movie.
Oh wow.
Wow.
So
Bradford.
Well, I'm not surprised, man, in light of like what Gus just said. And even like for Brazil, I did like a, YouTube deep dive of like watching all the videos that people had posted about it and stuff. And for this, there's like 3.
Yeah.
And most of them are just clips,
Not a lot of information online about this movie.
No.
Well, do we have enough banter? Should I start with the intro?
Classic intro. Go.
Well, we got definitely the bit with the lawyer. That was gold.
Yeah.
What bit? What do you mean bit?
All right, gang. Hey, welcome back to the show. My name's Brad Patello. I'm joined here by my good friend Gus Trout, and returning to the podcast, our good friend Adam Lukas, and he will be our only podcast guest from here on.
Yes. Excellent. My plan is finally coming to fruition.
All right, we're discussing Amadeus from 1984.
Yes, Amadeus.
No relation to the 1985 hit from.
I mean, maybe it was
Falco.
Inspirational, but not.
I was today years old when I found out they were not related. Yeah, I think it probably there was kind of like
inspired.
Well, there was
zeitgeist,
kind of a resurgence in popularity of like classical music in the 80s because of this film.
And there was a big movement of like neoclassical guitar stuff, kicked off by like Eddie Van Halen, and they got Yngwie Malmsteen, all those people that like, shredded the guitar, but it sounded weirdly classical.
Oh yeah,
they were doing arpeggios and everything. Anyway,
classical music and heavy metal have a lot of similarities, I've always thought.
Me too.
So yeah, I hadn't seen this, and the Blu-ray. We were talking about how there's no information about this film online. The Blu-ray that I got, because I've been using this podcast as an excuse to update my home video collection.
Of
to
course.
love
Well,
that.
it'll
I
be a
love
tax
that.
write-off eventually, right?
You have to also like how you put them on your shelf. It has to be like
Ooh,
in the order.
Yeah.
podcast episode order. Put a little
Yes.
label on each of them.
But yeah, the Blu-ray has nothing. There's no information on it. It's just the movie.
Holy shit!
Crazy.
Really?
Yeah,
Because I have the DVD, like the special edition director's cut DVD, and it has that hour-long special that you can
That's on
find on
YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah,
Okay.
with like Spanish subtitles.
Yeah, I was a little annoyed by
yeah.
that. That
Yeah.
there's just nothing else on the disc.
I can't
Yeah.
believe that wasn't on.
They've been
there.
doing that a lot. Well, I think it's because these distribution companies that printed them, they made a contract with the people that made the special features, right, for this run, but they didn't pay for the rights like in perpetuity. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because a lot of these behind the scenes featurettes are actually made by different. I mean, they're pretty much all made by different production companies that are trying to make money off of making the behind the scenes.
Right. Well, that's like famously, Pump Up the Volume is out of print because they
Oh, the
can't get the
music.
rights to the music.
Well, that
Yeah.
Beastie Boys song alone, I think, was like that was an unreleased song.
Yeah.
Imagine if copyright law was different and people's estates were allowed to like own their music for forever, and Mozart's like distant relatives still own the rights to his music. How expensive it would have been to make this movie. Like, 'cause he's like literally like the most famous musician of all time. Like, and the entire score is all of his hits, you know?
I wrote down at least they knew the music would be good. That was my first note.
Yeah. Milos Forman literally said, like, if everything else goes completely horrible, I know at least the music will be great.
Milos, man, it
the bomb.
takes every 10 years, but he makes like the best movie ever.
Yeah, this movie was great.
Yeah, so I want to hear your first, just like general thoughts on the movie, Brad.
Well, first of all, I took very few notes because I just wanted to enjoy the movie.
I took very few notes too. It's something, this movie just sort of, you need to like let it wash over you. It's not like do you know what it reminded me of? And I can't quite articulate the connection, but Zodiac.
I kind of get it because it's such a like kind of
meandering.
Oh yeah. No, it's like this long like meandering journey that there are twists and turns. None of them are huge, you know, really.
Yeah.
There's moments of tension and yeah.
It's thoughtful. The film, love the music. I love the storytelling. I didn't feel like almost 3 hours because you will both, I assume, watch the director's cut, which is 20 minutes longer than the theatrical cut, which I guess hasn't really existed since 1997. There was a DVD.
Wow.
Yeah. So
yeah,
like the director's cut is kind of the official version now. And even in the title, did it say director's cut right under the title Amadeus? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't feel like 3 hours. Like the director's cut is like what, almost, it's like 250.
Yes, I mean it was
230, maybe 240, something like that.
Yeah, it was close to 3 hours for sure.
I didn't feel like it. It ended, and I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I've been spending 3 hours watching this movie. I was so engrossed in it. I love music. You know, I'm a visual artist, and I really don't know anything about music, how it's made. It's like magic to me. If somebody gets up there and is like playing the piano and all this beautiful sounds come out, I have no idea how it's done.
How good is the piano playing execution?
Oh yeah.
They're holy shit. I don't know how it, like, I stopped even thinking about it.
Well, Thomas Hulse practiced 4 hours a day.
Wow.
Throughout the entire production of just practicing all these pieces so that he would practice them on a real piano, you know, but then when they were filming, it was it made no sound. He was just going click, 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 click.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was actually an independent group of like music, like piano professors and theory teachers and stuff. I think there were like 4 or 5 of them that took it upon themselves to go through the entire film and see if they could find anywhere where someone played a wrong note. Right?
Oh,
Like
wow.
any of the musicians, anyone playing piano, and they said, no, it's all perfect. And there was a guy literally in charge of making sure that was the case.
Yeah.
There was a dude on set being like, cut, he screwed up, go back.
Yeah.
You know?
That
I saw that too.
there is no, like you're saying, there is no like big ups or low lows necessarily, and it just flows so well. And the editing is so sharp.
I like the way the story is told. It feels epic, but it's like also accessible, maybe. Like,
and I think that because it was adapted by the writer of the stage play of the same name.
Yeah.
I think that's part of, why that is the way that it is. Like we keep revisiting the same locations over and over again, like we don't really see that much of Vienna.
Which is kind of smart, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it works.
Especially for 1984.
There were only 4 sets built, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah, it was almost entirely real locations in Prague.
It's
the Prague Opera House was kind of the main. Yeah, that was what I was going to comment on, is the set design. I was just so blown away by the sets and the costumes. That's kind of, I guess, my first visual takeaway. Like the camera work isn't flashy,
which I love. I think if it was flashy, it would break the magic of the period.
And the performances, the way that the performances are like the focal point of the film, there's so many takes where it's like it's all about the performance. Like Milos was like, get rid of all distractions, and like the age makeup on F. Murray Abraham has
so
to be
impressive,
perfect, so that that's not taking anybody out of it. Like it was all this focus on setting up the cast to be the focal point.
F. Murray Abraham's face acting in this movie is fucking unreal. When he's like all the shots of him like looking at Mozart's music, and he's fucking freaking out how good it is and how perfect it is, and you're hearing the old F. Murray talk about it.
Yeah, it's like
and
old Salieri is the narrator.
Yeah, the narration's happening as the young one is reacting.
His acting, and his facial acting, if he's reacting to the music, like several scenes where he's listening to the performance and he's amazed by it, but he's also insanely jealous. Like that all reads in his face.
The complexity of his relationship with Amadeus is like 8 Academy Awards, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is probably the most
nominated for more than that.
Well, F. Murray Abraham and Tom Hulce were against each other, and
which is great. That's insane.
But this is probably the most decorated movie we've discussed. 8 Oscars, 4 Golden Globes, a bunch of other awards, and this is back when the Oscars meant something. Like the pre-Titanic era. Sorry.
And even then, like I still don't give too much credence to the Oscars. Like, I've every now and then look through the best picture lists and be like, which ones haven't I, seen yet or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is one that it's just like, I mean, if
every single part of the movie is perfect.
Yeah,
like
if it
the
didn't
script, the acting, the direction, the costume design, the set design, it's just everything came together for this one.
Yeah, it would have been a crime against humanity to not just throw every award at it,
Well, let me go through the Oscars. Best Picture, Best Actor for F. Murray Abraham, Best Director, Milos Forman, Costume Design, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Makeup, Best Sound. Film was nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Editing, but lost both to The Killing Fields.
There's no contest. It's unbelievable.
The costumes and the art direction just blew me away. Like, looking at this from an artist standpoint.
Yeah.
And I can tell, like, I can look at it and they're using natural lighting. Obviously they're using real locations where they can, the sets they built. I have like a page up of all the shooting locations. Whenever I watch a movie like this, I always go, there's a website called movielocations.com that I always go to and look at. And that shows all the real locations, like all the streets and the buildings.
Yeah. Well, Milos Forman talked about that he wanted to shoot it in Prague because there were so many places where you could put a camera and you could spin around 360 degrees and you wouldn't get anything that wasn't period correct. And it's like the only city in the world that's still that well preserved. You know, everything else after World War II, so many of the cities were just destroyed. Everything from that era was gone. So that's why he wanted to go to Prague. Yeah, it was terrible. And Prague, I mean, you got to keep in mind, it was still in part of Soviet Russia. So this is an American film crew filming behind the Iron Curtain. They're being followed by secret police and everything.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there were secret police. They never knew if their waiter at the restaurant was KGB or an actual waiter. Like, they were followed everywhere. They were told what they could and couldn't do. They had problems importing things that they needed, like fabrics and things for the costumes. I think they had a hard time getting. They were using a special film stock because they used almost entirely candlelight for indoor scenes, and candlelight is super yellow, like way more than sunlight even. So they had to use a special film stock that was white balanced, you know, to candlelight, and they were having a hard time getting it. And like, so many challenges just to make sure that everything was perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it looks perfect. It worked.
It was paid off, man. Holy shit.
Yeah. Great.
Back to your comment about like the like non-flashy filmmaking. It's not showy in any sense.
It's to the point where you notice, oh, they're pushing in. There's a lot of push-ins on F. Murray Abraham's face.
Yeah,
that's like the main camera move that they use.
Yeah, if they want to heighten tension. Yeah,
very locked off. Like a lot of static shots, cameras on sticks.
But the editing, I think, is the most like almost ahead of its time. How it's edited is closer to something nowadays, or from like, you know, 10 years in like 1995 with like Fincher or something.
Yeah, well, and the jumps in time that they'll do that, but the story is still seamless. It's a very, like you said, Fincher does that really well. That's a more modern thing, where it's like, instead of having to be like, this happened and then scene, and then this happened and then scene, you know?
Right. And like how they incorporate the music when the actors are hearing it in their head, how they,
and it will transition from like, this is music that's actually being played here in this concert hall, to now we're seeing someone running through the streets of Prague wasted, and then now there's a horse riding in the rain, and, you know, like, and it all works.
That was my favorite part of the editing. Like the film's depiction of the creative process, I thought was very inspiring. Where, like you said, he's thinking of music and you'll hear it, or like when Salieri's going through his folder, and like each time he turns a page, a new piece of music starts. Like that's the music he's singing.
Yeah.
And then you know, you talked about that scene at the end where he's composing the
Requiem Mass.
The Requiem, yeah, and he's thinking of all the different parts, like all the then a clarinet comes in, and then an oboe, and
I know nothing about music, but
that's just blew me away.
Coolest fucking scene. It's so cool. It's so fucking cool. I can't get over how cool that scene is.
We jumped to the end again.
Yeah, we did it again. But
Damn it.
all of that stuff is not like, you know, I think people that are very into music and everything appreciate that just as much as people that have no background in it. Like, they did a good job at figuring out a way to present this process that in a way that didn't offend highly educated, music-minded people, so they could enjoy it, and gave you enough context so that people that didn't know how this really works, like, could follow along with the drama of it, you know?
Yeah. Hey, there's something, and I hopefully maybe you guys can help me nail it down, that makes this movie work so well, is like they're kind of disregarding this whole like the, you know, the fact that they're speaking English, and some of them are just like straight American accents, and some of them are kind of have an accent, and some of them are doing this. And I think what makes it work, for me at least, is because it's still so fucking believable.
Yeah.
There's not one moment where I'm not believing that there is a level of levity and humor to the whole movie that kind of helps kind of lube up, if you will.
No, it for sure. Just like in conversation, you know, when you're talking to somebody, if things are tense, you crack a joke, you know, it lets the thing keep moving.
Like just at the beginning when he's like, "Oh, it's so good. You should."
And the guy that's holding the cup is like licking it out of the cup.
So good at giving surrounding coverage of extra actors. There's a long held shot of the I don't know her name, but she's the maid that is hired by
Cynthia Nixon.
I don't think she has a name in the movie.
At the funeral, she is crying, and she's the last one before they cut to the where the graveyard is, and the guy's like dumping the body in there. But another thing that adds to the believability is, yes, they're not speaking German and don't have German accents or Italian accents or yada, yada, yada. But their poise and their mannerisms and how they walk around and do everything, how they eat, how the lower classes, how they watch and are amazed by stuff. Just the believability in that acting is so spot on, and so it must have been very meticulously.
That didn't take me out of it. Like, it did occur to me a few times just watching the film. I mean, because the one guy is Tom Hulce was also in Animal House. So
it's the guy from Animal House is like.
I thought of that a few times, and like the fact that he's sort of a similar character too. Like,
sure,
Mozart's kind of presented as sort of a party frat boy-ish almost.
Yeah.
I guess if you're going to do it this way, this is the way you fucking do it.
Milos Forman apparently insisted that they were American accents to kind of just get everybody immersed. And then also, I think the German operas were translated to English, but the Italian operas were still Italian. So in your brain, it's like English equals German, you know? So you make the connection, like they're actually speaking German. We're suspending disbelief. We're listening to this.
Yeah.
So you're completely immersed in this culture. You're hearing it through your own ears as an American audience, and just the politics of the era, which was so weird. Like
the no ballet and stuff.
It's just a weird kind of time in human history, I think.
Well, it's like
the powdered wig era.
Right before the fall of the traditional monarchy. Like before that, when this happened, it was like 100 years, there are no real monarchies left. You know what I mean? There were people, the guillotine was invented in France shortly after this, and then that was over.
Yeah, and I was going to say, like, Jeffrey Jones is, first of all, perfect in that role.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so yeah, Marie Antoinette. I was like, kind of.
That made me really. I don't think I caught that the first time I watched it, but it was like, I just was talking to I got a letter from my cousin.
Oh, Marie Antoinette. Yeah,
it's Marie Antoinette.
yeah.
And there's a scene with her, like in the when he's a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's in that scene. Marie Antoinette's in that scene.
Oh.
And I kind of like was sort of, that's the thing with this movie is like it doesn't over explain or over introduce its characters.
Yeah.
Like I'm just kind of like, oh wait, they're talking about Marie Antoinette. They give you just enough information. Like when he kind of starts hanging out with the vaudeville actors.
Yeah.
They don't like over introduce that element. It's just suddenly he's doing it and it's natural. Like
I would say that is coming from someone that's a very well trained and well versed stage writer too for the stage, because that's like in movies, I don't know, because you can kind of do anything and go over, it's people kind of they get overwrought with exposition and introduction and everything, whereas with a stage play it's like these are live people in a room and, you know, with live people on stage. And it was like, if we don't keep it moving and everybody acts a little bit bigger than they would, you know, but that works in both mediums, that kind of just like moving forward with the story, giving people the breadcrumbs that they can fill in the picture.
And I think this movie definitely benefited from being adapted by the same playwright who did the stage production.
That really needs to stop in movies. Like, stop holding our hands. Like, we're not.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think it's because films are generally, their audience is viewed as not as smart. Whereas if someone's going to see a stage play, they're like, oh, if we just casually mention Marie Antoinette, they'll pick it up. Do you know what I mean? But I think studios and executive producers are like, people are dumb, just say everything, you know? And it's like, no, that's bad for movies. You're ruining the thing that you're trying to make money off of, you idiots.
They definitely dumb it down. You don't have to think.
Yeah.
Have you guys
thinking is what makes it work. So.
Have you guys seen The Great on Hulu?
The who?
The Great.
Oh, yes. The show. Oh my God. Yeah. It's so good.
It's so good. And I think that The Great really looked to Amadeus.
Oh, for sure.
Hard for their inspiration. I
clicked it up a few notches, but
yeah. I couldn't recommend that show more, Brad. It's
I'll check it out. I love that era of human history. I have a fascination with it. So I love films that are set in this era, and I love the more authentic they are, the more I love it. Just the little details, like lighting all the candles in the chandelier of the opera house. There's a scene where you see them
actually doing it.
They got one of the chandeliers lowered, and they're meticulously lighting each candle.
Now, isn't it? And that was something I remember when I first saw this movie. I think you might have showed it to me, Lucas. You're like, "Oh my God, you haven't seen Amadeus? You have to watch this." Same thing with Brazil. The two movies that you've done. But I remember you saying like that was a big thing for the directors, like to have every single candle was like a real candle, and like it was all naturally lit by candlelight.
It shows.
Yeah. And those candles are actually like special film candles that burn like 4 times faster and 4 times brighter than what candle they would have used, so that they create enough light to illuminate the scene bright enough so the film isn't grainy.
Yeah.
And so then therefore literally between takes they would have to pull down all the chandeliers, replace the candles, light them again, put them back up, tell the KGB to get off to the shot.
We're so far removed, from that world. The music is kind of all that's left. Like, we hear the magic flute, but we don't think of it as like a comedy, or a slapstick comedy, which was how it was presented. Like, when they're showing it in the vaudeville theater, when he goes to work for them, you see the difference in class, like the politics of class, because of like the set design and the costume design and the way people are acting. And
yes, the context that this movie gives you, it is real or as unreal as it might be. It feels so real.
It's all there for a purpose, and it all works. I think that there's a lot that's historically inaccurate about this movie, but that's more in like the plot. I think that that sort of stuff, it was very intentional and researched and detailed.
So it kind of just goes chronologically through his life, and the two Salieri and Mozart developed sort of a one-sided rivalry where
I think it's important to bring up that Salieri's he's actually the main character to the movie.
He is.
With we're introduced to him
his point
first, where he's also the first character we see, and he's an elderly man, and he tries to commit suicide, and he's put into the loony bin, and then that's the in the loony bin, a priest comes to talk to him.
He claims to have killed Mozart.
The whole story, right? He is confessing his life's starting at Mozart's.
So the framing device of the film is old Salieri, done in the best makeup they could. I gotta say the framing device is probably my least favorite part.
Oh, really? I think that's one of my favorite parts.
Well, they did a great
how it's cutting back and forth.
They did a great job with the makeup, but I just kept thinking of Star Trek Insurrection.
Well, of course you did, Brad.
Where he's
you gotta bring Star Trek in here somehow.
Well, he was the main villain in one of the worst Star Trek films ever, and his makeup looked kind of similar. Like,
see, I don't have that connection.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because man, you would have.
I think the makeup for 1984 is.
They did an amazing job. Like the makeup looks great, and
it's not only the makeup; it's the the performance. There is a clear difference between old man Salieri and
you can see like in his eyes still, like they retain the eye acting. Like there's not too much makeup to cover up his performance in his eyes. So it was really well done.
I get it though, Brad. I get it.
It's Star Trek.
I strongly disagree, and
it's a mechanism I generally dislike. Right? A framing mechanism I generally dislike. This is like one of the only examples that I can point to for its continued existence. It's
like if you only saw this movie and then somebody was like, "Oh, I don't like that kind of like story framing," you'd be like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?"
Like if I hadn't seen Star Trek Insurrection first.
Right, exactly. No, but you know what I mean. Like generally, this is bad. This is a bad way to make a film.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like that's one of my least favorite. Like you said, one of my least favorite storytelling devices, but it is done well here. And I will agree with that.
Yeah. And it's not a crutch. It's like an intentional choice. And most of the time it's a crutch.
So we hear the story from his point of view. It's old Salieri narrating, telling this priest who's come to hear his confession all about Mozart's life. And they kind of have a one-sided rivalry. Like Salieri is insanely jealous of Mozart's talent because he is very pious, I guess. He's very godly. And
well, he made an oath, right? When he was a child, he said, "I'll give you my chastity, my industry, and my humility to God." And if God made him the greatest composer, he made him famous, and so he could glorify God better somehow by being famous. It's
and then he needs to
see a psychologist. He needs to fucking see.
Well, I was gonna say I kind of relate to Salieri a little bit, being like kind of a mediocre artist who will never achieve greatness.
10,000%, Brad. That's why I love and hate this film. I love this film, but it hurts me to watch it sometimes.
For every Mozart, there's like hundreds of Salieris.
Millions.
Like most of us working, and I've made a pretty good career for myself, and I like making art, and I think the result is decent, but I don't think I'll ever be a great artist. And I think about the fact that we're 250 years out from Mozart's life. In 250 years, will anybody remember that I existed? Probably not.
I will.
Well, but this podcast is what'll do it. If you keep me as the sole, as long as I'm the sole guest host. Well, quick
I
aside.
want to make a new poster where it's
Sorry to
just
get all
your
deep
face
there,
and we're like just barely being like squeezed out of the frame.
But I did relate to the character a lot for that reason.
I think that's what makes the character. I think that even Mozart, like, say this movie was about Beethoven or some shit, like he would even feel that, no one feels like accomplished to an extent. There's always imposter syndrome with everybody. Yeah.
Well, guess who was Beethoven's teacher in real life?
Eddie Van Halen.
Salieri. Yeah, he was one of his main musical mentors, and Beethoven even credits him with like teaching him everything that he knows, type of thing. So we'll get into all that later. But a quick aside. So the title of the film is Amadeus, and this is a perfect time to talk about this. We're talking about, his vow to God. Amadeus means beloved of God, or like chosen by God. So there's a very strong argument to be made that the title of the film actually refers to Salieri and his decision to decide, his choice to decide, I am the chosen one. And why is God communicating through this, what he calls him a fiend and a thousand other things.
Yeah.
But
he's shocked to learn that Mozart is so vulgar, but he's really not that vulgar. He just,
for the time,
he is a complete, like,
for an upper class, person of that time. Yeah. He's like, I'm trying to think of like the comedic, equivalent of like what comedian. He's
Johnny
like
Knoxville.
Yeah, or who's the guy, the guy who talks in a Brooklyn accent, leather jacket from like the
Andrew
80s.
Dice Clay.
Andrew Dice Clay. He's like Andrew Dice Clay.
Boom! I remember that fucking name.
Nice. He's like, hey, the Dice Man play a piano over here. Boom.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, I get that too. Like, I get that. Like, you get with Salieri's character right away, like that he would be so, like, bewildered, the fact that like these two things are connecting,
just make him
the fact
so
that he's
upset.
like this like insane genius, and also doesn't give a, he kind of doesn't give a fuck either,
Well, okay, so, and this
he gives
is
a fuck in
the
a
same
different
time
kind
of
of
the
way.
film,
Yeah,
to keep the chronology going on, he
Yeah.
talks about Mozart. He idolized Mozart. Salieri idolized Mozart as a child, right? And Mozart was writing concertos and shit at
right.
like
He was
4.
doing nothing, and he was like 14. Yeah,
Yeah. And so, but think about a kid, a young boy who was performing at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, and how like that was the most famous person on earth. How were they as an adult? Is there any
Michael
humans?
Jackson?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Is that where you were
Justin
going with
Bieber?
that?
No, Mozart was like Michael Jackson of his time.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way he could have been a functional adult because of the way his dad, used him and manipulated him and, forced him to focus on one thing. He never had a chance to grow up or be normal, really.
What I really love about this movie, and it comes through Salieri's performance, and like I get why Mozart might be why he is,
Yeah.
and still then he's still like and then the honesty of like of human nature, he still is not like over it and like, oh, Mozart, there's reasons why people are the way they are. He's still like,
I must destroy you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Salieri just kind of spends the rest of the film trying to thwart Mozart because he's so insanely jealous and so bewildered by the fact that God would give such amazing talent to such a vulgar, quote unquote, vulgar person. And
Well,
that's his motivation.
I kept on wanting to write down cat and mouse, but it's not really cat and mouse. It's only with Salieri that it's the cat and mouse game, because Mozart's just clueless and he's just Mozarting.
He kind of, I got the impression he kind of got it a little bit. There was a couple points where he says, "Oh, I thought you didn't like me," or something like that.
No, Mozart, he doesn't know that.
I don't think he knows the extent of it. I think he thinks it's just the normal political, goings on, which he has always been able to triumph because his talent is just, his talent's leaps and bounds above everyone else. So he's like, okay, play your little games. I'll just keep writing the hottest shit around and everyone will, do whatever I want. But he finally gets to the point where he's competing against the guy who is the king of the political game, Salieri. He is the guy that is able to manipulate the Italians, the Germans, the emperor, everybody, and plays them like an instrument. And Mozart has no answer for that. And as soon as things aren't going well for him, he handles it so poorly, he starts to self-destruct.
Get an act 2 and Mozart's like life starts to show a lot of cracks. Like there's a lot of act 1 is a lot of buildup of him where his fame is rising, he gets married, things are kind of going right for him. But then I guess when Salieri decides he's going to thwart him at every possible turn, things start to kind of go bad for him personally. He starts to overdo the drinking and the debauchery.
We got to talk about Tom Holtz's laugh.
And
where did that come from? And also I love that, like, something that's not like the very end is you hear his laugh
Yeah, after he's
right before
dead,
right
like
before
before the
it
credits.
fades to credits. And
Yeah.
that is just one of those things to me that is such a cool, like, that's not in the script, obviously. That's something that, like,
I'm pretty sure it's in the script.
oh wow, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in the
You
script.
mean the laugh at the end, or
all of
just
it?
the laugh altogether?
The laugh altogether, yes, because they even mention it in the dialogue of the film. His giggle and how annoying it is.
Well, I guess there are different stories on that. One story is that Tom Hulse based it on a certain director, and to this day he refuses to say what director he's talking about.
Maybe the specific laugh, but I'm pretty sure in the script it's mentioned that he has a very, like, notable laugh that gets on people's nerves. But I could be misremembering that.
Well,
So
I
good.
think that's
It's so
real,
fucking
though.
good.
There were accounts of Mozart having an annoying laugh as well.
Yeah.
So I think it was. So I was actually a little bit surprised, because after the movie I went and looked up, what was real and what wasn't. There's a lot of it's based in reality.
Oh yeah, all of the, like, main players and honestly a lot of the, like, weird details are very real, like, the small details.
Yeah, like the rivalry between Mozart and Salieri was played up. It was implied in several letters between Mozart and his dad that the two did have a rivalry, but it seemed more of like a political,
general professional rivalry, like anybody, fighting in the same industry in a one place.
So that part was fictionalized. He really was hired by an anonymous benefactor to write Requiem, but not Salieri pretending to be his dead dad. A lot of the stuff about the politics was real, like the fact that the Marriage of Figaro play was banned, and the fact that he had to convince Jeffrey Jones's character to let him do it. That was real. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised how much was actually real. I mean, it's obviously very fictionalized and very, I don't want to say Hollywood, not Hollywood, but like movie. It's like the movie, fictionalized movie. Yeah, artistic liberties are taken.
Yeah, yes, for sure.
Which, I mean, come on, like, you want that.
Yeah,
I feel like this is an example of kind of the perfect blend of that. Of, you're actually learning something by watching this as a person living now, and you're also extremely entertained, and hopefully you're smart enough to be like, well, this, I mean, probably isn't exactly what happened, because was Salieri going to write this all down after he, like, does this crazy scheme? First of all, Occam's razor says this is, if you want to go about killing Mozart, this is the least possible, or least efficient way to do it.
Slowly poisoning his life.
Yeah, and then, like, pretending to be his dead dad and, like, making it all about.
Well, I think that don't you think that Salieri, he is taking his religious guilt more? It's more about like his ego is entangled, and it's not necessarily like I took a knife to Mozart.
He doesn't literally think he killed him. Like,
he's
literally.
like, I killed him.
I don't know. I think he's not sure. I think that Salieri isn't sure. He meant to kill him. He wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
And he was doing all of these things that led to his death. So I think Salieri is like, if I hadn't have done all the stuff I did, Mozart would still be alive. Therefore, I killed him.
How did he die in real life? Do they not know?
It's not. We don't know for sure because there was no autopsy done, but these are the symptoms that he actually had in real life. He did, like, collapse after or during a performance or something.
Mm-hmm.
And for the next, I think it was about 2 weeks, his symptoms were like nausea, headaches, a lot of vomiting, diarrhea, and then he started swelling up, like he had edema, like his kidneys were failing. But normally kidney failure takes a lot longer than 2 weeks, because from when he first started getting sick to when he died, it was like only 2 weeks. So what they think happened was there was a spike of a bunch of people that had died with a streptococcal, like a strep or staph, one of those two variants, like a systemic infection, like in their blood and everything. And that can lead to your kidneys like catastrophically failing, you swelling up like a balloon. They said he was so puffy, he was like twice his normal size because he's not peeing anymore. So he's just retaining water and your tissues just start to swell up and people couldn't recognize it.
He died at 35.
Yeah. So it was something that caused an edema that then it wasn't his heart really that, he didn't have like heart issues, but he just,
And like, we're still listening to his music. You hear his music in cartoons and commercials all the time.
With just a limited, they're not doing anything flashy. It's just solid classic filmmaking.
A lot of just straight shots of things, like not,
the big bold decisions are those musical transitions and the like going from the inception of the idea to the fully fleshed out production and everything. Those are like the big, like, instead of the camera moving and everything, it's the music that does it.
Right.
I love the scene where his mother-in-law is yelling at him.
Yeah.
And then it transitions into the
she's like
opera.
Yeah.
Those kinds of transitions.
And you see that moment of inspiration in his eyes, where he's like, and then he's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is comedy gold.
Yes, exactly. Like he's, and like you were saying, Gusto, I do identify as a person who does creative things for fun, that like wanting to get an idea, like convince someone else that this idea you have is worth their time and effort to like help you with or whatever.
You want somebody to be as hyped as you are,
right,
on that idea.
Yes. And don't tell me how many arguments I've had with my wife. I'm like, hey, check this out. She's like, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, come on.
I'm like in tears telling my wife something and she's like, cool, okay.
No, I'm a proud Salieri. It's fine.
I'm definitely a Salieri. We all want to be Mozart, but at the end of the day, we're all Salieri, except for like that small percent. And you know who they are. Like I've seen taught for like 15 years, and I've seen 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah, the people that just don't even really have to try. They just do what comes naturally, and it's just like, how is
and you're just like, I hate you. Like, how are you so good? Like, you don't.
And you've never seen like any of these movies. You have like none of that inspiration behind any of this. Like, how do you?
Yeah, they're referencing things they haven't seen. They're reinventing the wheel, but doing it so well that, like, why don't you look at some film history? Why don't you read some literature?
You tried.
I know, or gave a shit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about my favorite scene. And I would assume it's all of your favorite scenes. The end, like the crescendo to the movie. Do you like that, Lucas?
Well, yes, I do like it.
Did I use that correctly?
Basically, yes. It's actually more of the
Shrishmendo.
I can't remember. Shrishmendo, yeah. No. Well, okay. So can I tell you a quick story to transition into this? So I was watching this like for like the second time, trying to I took no notes because, like you said, again, like I just did.
I don't know. I was not compelled to write any notes.
Yeah, I was just like enthralled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the second time, I was just kind of like watching it in bits and bobs, and I was watching it on my iPad on my little back porch, and the first thunderstorm of the year rolls through right as the Don Giovanni, like actually bursts through the wall, like comes in and there's like lightning and everything. And I'm outside and there's rain blowing around and I'm watching it on my iPad. And I was like, this is amazing. Like for me, that's like where the movie starts to go.
Yes.
It just doesn't stop accelerating from there.
Again, it's what I was saying earlier. It's like, it's also the closest that, F. Murphy's character is like getting to truly understanding.
Well, it's the point of no return. That's where he's like, I can see Mozart. I'm the only person that understands him. And you know what? Screw it. I'm still going to destroy him. And then that leads down the inevitable path to this final scene. I really wanted to tell that story about the thunderstorm. I mean, watching Don Giovanni.
I love it, man. That's so cool. I'm a little jealous, actually.
Kenny Baker's in this, by the way, briefly. He's one of the vaudevillian actors, like the.
Oh yes, yeah.
A lot of the characters are just like come and go, but Jeffrey Jones, again, who's perfect in this, he keeps saying, "Well, there it is." He says that like
well
5 or 6 times, and half of me wonder if like Jeff Goldblum, like that, like he keeps saying it.
Yeah. Oh,
like
great.
whenever he wants to wrap up a scene, whenever he's tired of this conversation.
Yeah, something happens where he has no actual thing to say and he wants to leave. That's what he says. He's like, well, there it is.
I'm gonna have to start saying that.
There's such the complexities of the characters. He's not a complete buffoon. It's not like they're like this one-sided character. No one is.
In a lesser movie, the Jeffrey Jones character would have been just a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
But he is given depth.
No, there's nuance there. I think that Milos Forman wanted to show that like all of the monarchs at this time were kind of in this weird like place where they were disconnected from reality, from the real reality of the majority of people and of existence. But some of them were like kind of benevolent and meant well. Like I think that, Emperor Joseph is supposed to be one of those type of guys. He's trying to give something back to the people and be a patron of the arts, but we can't stir him up because I would like to keep my head connected to the rest of my body, but he is at the end of the day like an idiot too. Like
it's very complex.
Awesome. There's nuance to it. It's great.
Well, so let's get into this end scene. So Mozart is
collapses.
He's like dragged backstage, and Salieri is like at his show. Obviously, he's at all of his shows. He comes running backstage, and there is again with the complexity of these characters, there is a concern. Like Salieri has a deep concern for Mozart because at some point there is this weird level of like he wants him to be alive still to like hear his music, but at the same time he wants to like bash his brains in with a rock if he I think
the wheels are turning for Salieri, but it doesn't exactly know where it's going at that point.
Right. But he's
like, I can become like Mozart's. I will be in charge of Mozart's life. I think to him that's like very tantalizing. Well, but I agree that he does still want him to like make more music, right?
Right. But when what he would, if he was a true friend or a good person, he would like have him rest and find a doctor and bring
take him to the hospital.
Then he is so obsessed that like he tricks him into wanting to write with
his goal there,
it's like he is touching the hand of God kind of.
Well, his real end goal is for Mozart to finish this piece, for Mozart to die, and for him to take the piece and be like, I wrote this for Mozart, and they play Mozart's piece saying it's Salieri for Mozart's funeral, and he can get all the glory. That's his
but
goal.
In the moment, he is high on the fact, like he is seeing a glimpse of how Mozart's brain works.
Oh, for sure, because that's what his whole life has been dedicated to, writing music. And he can't, and you could tell in the scene, they make it like he can't quite comprehend where Mozart's going or why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's like, you go too fast. It makes no sense. What are you doing?
That plays into the ending too, where Salieri, like the last thing we see of him is that he's going around forgiving people for being mediocre. Like,
he's like the patron saint of mediocrity.
Also, Tom Hulce apparently was deliberately like skipping around in the script there to confuse F. Murray Abraham while they were filming that scene.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was going back and forth, so F. Murray Abraham would have to like kind of vamp to kind of get his brain around what was happening. It was super smart.
And it's kind of a dick move to do in the moment, but then
when it achieves the results that are you're looking for, it's perfect.
I think in Deer Hunter, Christopher Walken straight up truly spits into De Niro's face, and that was not planned, and the director told him to do it, and De Niro's reaction is like
just real
sheer.
De Niro.
Yeah, he's
You're like,
pissed.
you spitting at me?
Okay.
Okay, you got spit at me? Yeah,
No other movies put me so directly in the head of a composer, like
for sure.
somebody who makes music and who thinks of it.
No, for someone who music is their first language. You know
And
what
the
I mean?
fact,
Like,
and
that's-
then he's
they
like on his
think in music.
deathbed.
Yeah,
Ugh,
so good.
It's so good. I honestly don't. I just want to like close this laptop and go
Just go watch that
scene.
scene
Yeah.
again.
So Mozart dies.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to happen sometime.
Yeah.
And
But
they
there's so much
unceremoniously
yeah.
dump him in a mass
How-
grave.
how
which
good-
I guess really happened too. I guess
I
really happened,
that
too.
shit is crazy.
Yeah.
It makes great. I mean, I
If you
get it,
weren't,
like,
he basically he wasn't rich enough to get, like
Yeah.
that's just what happened. If you weren't mega rich, you
get some
got
lime
dumped.
thrown on you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they got the lime bucket.
That scene's great too. The funeral scene where they're
Mhm.
playing the Requiem, his final unfinished piece. Everybody's there. All the characters are there. It's a great cap to the movie.
I think it's a good gateway to art house fare. You know, if
Yes.
someone is not good with stuff that's paced slow or is very introspective or is, on a small scale or something. This is like a large scale movie presented on a small scale that's very engrossing, longer than average, but it's still, like immensely watchable.
And it's
for just
making
an
you pay
average
attention to
person.
different kinds of things than like that
Sure.
would,
Yes.
that would an action movie might, or like an action adventure movie might be offering you.
Yeah.
This
Especially
movie's awesome. Go watch this movie.
Yes.
Well,
I
just
did.
the decision of picking those two actors.
Yeah,
for
all the
role
casting, the people that
is
did the
just,
casting
like,
and the writer and
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
guess.
mean, yeah, it's like we said, it's like everything. It
Peter
just came
Schaefer.
together on this one.
Well, you saw that Mark Hamill was almost cast as Mozart.
yes.
He
Yeah.
was, he was playing him in the Broadway version, replacing Tim Curry. The
Well,
Broadway
there's a
version
perfect
was
opportunity to do a Luke Skywalker, I'm not your father thing.
well. That was, I think, that was what cost him the role. Is that Milos Forman didn't want it to people to think of Star Wars
yeah.
yeah.
because
Yeah,
that was
and-
only 1 year out from Jedi. So
Oh yeah.
And Hulse was called in like last minute, didn't even really know what was going on. And
it's like the character.
same thing with like Elizabeth Barrage, right? The woman who played Costanza. There was somebody else was cast and they actually were shooting with her and she got sick or broke a leg or something. And they had to replace Mozart's wife like partway through shooting.
Man. Oh, she does such a good job.
Yeah.
She's unbelievable.
I feel
Yeah.
like the other woman was more traditionally beautiful. I can't remember the actor's name,
Mhm.
but she was more like like Costanza's character to me has this kind of like childlike, but also
she's very like angelic,
maternal.
innocent. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like this innocent child, but she's also like trying to take care of Mozart and not really knowing how and trying.
Yeah,
to be the
there's a
responsible-
truth to her performance that
Yeah.
you don't see very often. Yeah.
And having her cast just makes that a little bit more believable as somebody trying to fulfill a role that they are just not able. They're just it's outside of their boundaries of experience and capability.
Right.
Anyway,
Good pick, Adam.
Yes.
hey, no, I just picked stuff that like I find myself watching over and over again, because
Yeah.
sometimes a lot of those films I haven't really like analyzed to this level. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because until you talk about it with other people or till you're going to and you watch it with that intent.
It is
don't-
it is a fun, like I've been finding this podcast, like just every movie I watch, you're watching in a new light for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love doing this podcast. by the way.
I do too. That's why I got my lawyer involved.
Now it's
And-
time for a
and-
segment called What Are You Watching? Sometimes called What Are We Watching? Sometimes called What You Watch Now, huh?
Lucas, let's start with you, buddy.
Lucas, what are you watching?
Well, what I watch now, huh?
That has to be what it's called.
Well, what I watch now, huh? Well, I would say probably Sopranos.
Nice.
I am actually
You and Rachel are going through
back
Sopranos, huh?
through the Sopranos. We're in season 4 right now.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, I've watched it before. She's never seen it though, so it's an interesting. I don't know.
Season 4 is the one with Ralphie, right?
Yes, it's very Ralphie centric, and it's very interesting experience. I mean, like it would have been like watching Amadeus. I mean, not exactly the same, but knowing that you had never seen it, being in the same room, it's like I would have had a hard time, like not like looking over at you at certain points and stuff like that.
So your wife has never seen it?
Correct. This is her first viewing.
Interesting.
So I was like, hey, just watch a couple episodes. I know I didn't want to watch it whenever I first started watching it. I was like, a show about mobsters. It's like, okay, mobster movies and stuff. Yeah. But a whole show, there's so many seasons. Like I hadn't watched any of it and it was over, you know?
Right. It's quite a haul.
Yeah. And then you start getting into it and you're like, man, this show is way better than it should be. It makes no sense. This is so good. Like, and it all is because it's not a mob show. Like it is, but it's
about family.
Well, there's so much character development and I don't know. There's a lot of nuance and they explore a lot of different themes and, you know, it's not like super heavy or anything, but there's a lot to appreciate from a perspective of somebody that, you know, likes to think of themselves as a little bit more of a cerebral audience member. So anyway, if you haven't seen it, I'm just telling you, just forget that it's a mob show or whatever.
Lucas, I'm right here. I get it.
I forgot.
I'm so embarrassed that I haven't seen it.
Well,
Gus, you haven't seen it?
It's just one of those things. Like I didn't have HBO when it first came out, and then it just kind of got away from me. And now it seems like such a undertaking. I'm going.
How many seasons are there?
7?
Is it like 7? I think 7 or 8, something like that.
All right. Well, Gus,
Brad, what you watch
now?
Oh, me. What do you watch now?
Gus, what you watch now, huh?
I watched. I had never seen, and guess who? It's a Schumacher.
Oh boy.
A Time to Kill.
Ah.
Oh yeah, that one's all right. I guess
it's not the okay. So I watched. HBO Max has Lost Boys and A Time to Kill right now.
He's got just such a weird body of work, that guy.
So I watched Lost Boys, which I think is legitimately, it's not like just a nostalgic movie for me, which it is. It is like I'm saying this was with Ernest, like that movie is fucking awesome. It's really good. There's no it's one of those movies. It's like a landmark movie. Everybody is trying to make that movie. I'm not saying they're trying to remake that movie with the same story and everything, but the feel of that movie,
capture the same magic. Yeah.
That magic,
yeah.
Because the
achieved a specific thing.
Are like Jason Patric's performance is awesome. Like the music, how it's shot, it's fucking awesome. I love that movie. And A Time to Kill is ridiculous, but also it had me tearing up at moments, and especially towards the end. And I had to wait for the yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. Yeah, like
that's John Grisham, right?
I think so. It's based on a novel. I don't know if it's Grisham.
Yeah, I don't know that stuff.
But everyone is like just the right amount of sweaty. Like
yeah, very sweaty.
They're really sweaty, but not too sweaty.
I remember when that movie came out, I'm like, oh, Wooderson from Dazed and Confused is going to be a real actor now. I remember thinking that.
Well, he does a really good job, and the chemistry between him and Sandra Bullock is great, and it is Schumacher like nutso, like the drama dial is turned to 11.
Yeah. There are things that don't work, but like overall, I don't regret ever seeing it, you know?
No, yeah. It somehow fucking works. Schumacher is a maniac, man.
He is insane.
That guy,
R.I.P. baby.
Yeah, rest in peace, Joel Schumacher.
So that's what I watched.
I saw
Brad. What you been watching now?
What you been watching now, huh?
I watch now Unhinged.
Unhinged. Wait, I think I saw. Oh no, that's the Russell Crowe.
I am going to
the new Russell Crowe.
Very enthusiastically recommend that you watch Unhinged.
Interesting.
Movie. Parts of it I liked ironically. Parts of it I liked it unironically, but I always liked it. For one reason or another. The thing that
that's good to say. Yeah, that's a good note.
The thing that I liked unironically is the stunt work. This movie has some amazing car chases and some amazing car crashes.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of good car stunts.
What did you see it on? What platform?
It's on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Prime.
It's
like an Amazon
I'm
original.
watching it tomorrow, Brad.
I might watch it tonight.
The thing that I liked ironically is everything else. The story, Russell Crowe's performance. I kept having to remind myself that he once played a gladiator. He's looking super doughy.
Oh yeah, he's very. He might have that Mozart Amadeus edema or something.
He hasn't peed in weeks.
Yeah, he's got to get his kidneys checked.
Yeah.
He is pretty big in this. I mean, I'm not one to talk. I'm pretty pudgy, but I never played a gladiator. I've never been.
Also
fit,
true.
You know?
I've never had a six pack at any point in my life. Did I?
But just the fact that Russell Crowe is playing, it's almost like a parody of himself. But if you like really good car stunts, amazing crashes in this movie, the car crashes, a couple of them, you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And the plot is just so ridiculous that it's funny. All right. Well, thanks for making it this far, I guess. My name's Brad.
Yeah, if you got this far, thank you so much for listening, guys and girls.
My Instagram is @BradPatello. My website is bradpatello.com because I'm way too old to think of a clever handle for myself.
The Peaster.
Anything you want to? Gus is Mr. Trouth. Anything you guys want to? Adam, do you have an Instagram handle you want to plug or anything?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Renaissance Grunt. So get out your dictionary and figure out how to spell Renaissance because I forget sometimes. I'm also on TikTok at Fill Up My Mouth with Farts. That's my actual TikTok handle.
That's not a joke, people.
Like a name, you'll never find me, but that's my real TikTok handle.
Right.
He has some funny TikToks.
That's it. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and I will see you next week, every week, forever and all time. I love you.
Adam Lukas, everyone.